Hi. So thank you guys all for coming out tonight to this workshop. My name is Sarah Mercier. I work at Lake County Resources Initiative, and we're putting this on with all these other groups and these two gentlemen. And Lake County Resources Initiative does a bunch of natural resource and renewable energy work. You can come and contact us anytime you need any help with any energy-related things with your businesses. And so my hope for this was to help you guys be able to save money with your businesses by spending as little money as possible to make that happen. And so we've brought in these two experts. We have Buzz and Tom from Oregon Energy Green, and they're going to run us through about an hour-and-a-half workshop, and hopefully we'll get to do some hands-on stuff and you guys will learn a lot. Okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Oh, wow. Sorry.
Good timing.
This is perfect. In fact, I'm Buzz Thielemann, this is Tom McDowell, but this is Todd Anderson. Todd is from Pacific Power, and they're the ones that sponsored us. They sponsored us being here. So, Todd, would you like to say something?
The construction started back again.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm based out of Clement Falls, and welcome, and thanks Buzz for doing this for us, and I think you're going to learn a lot. I've listened to Buzz a number of times, and great insight of what you're about to learn tonight, so I apologize as well.
Oh, hey, we went through the construction zone too. I think anyone around here realizes it's going to be torn up at any time.
And there's plenty of food and water, so get up at any time and eat lots of food.
Well, thank you very much for being here. Again, my name is Buzz Thielemann, and from a company called Oregon Energy Green, and basically we're like troubleshooters. I used to call us consultants, but my grandfather told me one time, he said, Buzz, you see, before this I worked for Pacific Power. I worked for Pacific Power for 28 years, and that's how I learned most of this stuff. And I remember the day that I left Pacific Power, my grandfather said, why are you leaving Pacific Power? Why are you leaving the city on my own? And I said, Grandfather, I want to be a consultant. And he goes, really? He said, let me tell you a story about a rancher. He said, there was this rancher there, and he had all these sheep, and out of nowhere this car SUV comes down a dusty road, and the dust is flying all over. This young guy pulls out, and the rancher's sitting on there on his quad, watching all these thousands of sheep. And the guy rolls down his window and says, hey, you the owner? And the rancher says, yeah, I'm the owner of all, yeah, it's all mine. And he said, are you a gambling man? I said, boy, if you're a farmer or you're a rancher, you better be a gambling man. He said, yeah, I'm a gambling man. He said, well, I'll make you a wager. He said, see all these sheep all here, over here? If I can tell you exactly how many sheep there are, and I can do it in less than 30 seconds, can I have one of them? And the rancher said, knock yourself out. Guy jumps out of his SUV, puts out a little satellite dish, he has a laptop computer, he has a GPS, starts making calculations. He comes back in 25 seconds and says, you have exactly 6,332 sheep. You guys, unbelievable. You got it. Pick your animal up. So he's loading up the animal, and the rancher comes over and says, hey, are you a gambling man? He goes, well, sure. Quid pro quo. Yeah, I'm a gambling man. He said, if I can tell you what you are, can I have my animal back? The guy said, sure. He says, easy, you're a consultant. The guy said, oh, God, how'd you get it? He said, 3 reasons. He said, 1, you came uninvited. 2, you told me something I already knew. And 3, you loaded up my dog. So anyway, even though we're a consultant, we are troubleshooters, and a lot of this history came from, honestly, being a troubleshooter for 28 years. And when I first met Sarah, she said, let's do a 2-part series. And this first part is going to be no cost, low cost. You know, what can you do, to control your power bill? What can you do as far as propane and oil? What's the cheapest fuel? What options do I have? What can I do? What decisions can I make that are going to be a cost-effective thing for me? So that's what we're going to cover. And then, Sarah, in a couple of weeks or so, we're talking about a second shot.
We want to dive more into incentives and what are the infrastructure upgrades that you can do and how can you budget for those and what available incentives there are.
Right, because you see, you are all with Pacific Power, and Pacific Power, you pay 3% public purpose charge that funds the Energy Trust of Oregon, funds all the incentives. So that's going to be the phase 2. But today's going to be no cost, low cost. Okay, welcome. Welcome. Hi there, guys. So anyway, this is me. I'm the owner of this company. I have 27 years of Pacific Power, certified energy manager. 10 years for the Public Power Association, and I'm a duct, go Ducks. I also an author. My involvement with infrared got me to actually write a book. It's on Amazon. It's called Hunt for Allies. Energy consultant, married to Terry for now 42 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you very much. And with a mentor, and my partner here is Tom. Tom, you want to introduce yourself?
That's me, Tom McDowell. I've been in the electrical trade most of my life, 35 years as a trained electrician and contractor. Pretty much all here in Oregon except for a short stint in Hawaii for a couple of years. That didn't last long, so we came back to Oregon. I've been with Oregon Energy Green now for about 3 years, working with Buzz on these energy efficiency projects. I do solar verifying for the Energy Trust of Oregon. If somebody applies for incentives for a solar installation, they have to go through several requirements of the Energy Trust. One is submitting a set of plans to be reviewed and approved. Once that is approved, funds are reserved and the installation is installed. After installation, I will visit the site, look at the installation, make sure all the requirements have been completed, and then funds are released to the contractor or owner. So any questions on solar, I can help you with a little bit of that. I'm married also, one daughter. Buzz has me about 5 years on a number of years of being married. I've only got through 37 so far. Lived in the Rogue Valley, in Central Oregon, pretty much all my life. So that's me.
Thanks, Tom. Done this for a very long time. I started in 1971, and I also have a lot of young people who work for it, and they like to work for me, and they'll come up and say, what was it like working with Ben Franklin and Tom Edison? I wasn't there flying a kite, but I've done it a long time. I'm going to start with this. You cannot control what you can't measure. And one thing about electricity is kind of vague. You know, it's not like a gallon of gas or you pick up 5 gallons of propane. It's kind of vague. And so what we're going to start here on understanding it, because the most significant element in how you use energy is you. It's how it's used. And I learned that when I started in Albany. Can everyone hear me okay? No microphone here, but okay. When I started right out of school in Albany, Oregon, I was hired to do analysis and with people that were putting in electric baseboard heat at that time, which isn't the most efficient. But I lived in an apartment, and one of the things that happened is that we had this high bill complaint. And the bill, the people were saying their bills were so much higher. And I went to them and I looked at all the apartments were the same, by the way. They all had baseboard heat, they all had electric water heat, they're all the same height. But this one couple that lived there were about 75 years old, and she was very arthritic. And as a result, they kept it 80 degrees in there. And they had to keep it. She would just get so stoned up that they had to do it. And then I looked at the apartments right next door, and they were all the same. And their bills were about 30% less. And what I found out is every degree over 70 raises your bill about 3.1%. So that was my first education. They were identical. The buildings were identical. Everything except the people. And because they had to keep it 10 degrees higher, well, 10 times 3 is about 30%. So anyway, that's what was one of my first lessons of how significant it was, the people living in there. And, you know, the nice thing about there's nothing wrong keeping it 80. If she had to be 80 to be comfortable and was arthritic, it was money well spent. So that's how I learned that lesson. Understanding the power bill is, and you write your power bill, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I look at it as a barometer. You know, most of us will pick up that power bill and we go this or whatever bill, oh, so many dollars, and you know, you write the check. I encourage you to look beyond that. Encourage to look beyond that. There are good indicator, there's spikes, a neutral energy use, it's a good barometer. And one of the things I would caution people is that sometimes they get involved and they have an equal pay plan, and that is a very, very fortunate thing. If, let's say, your bills are really big in the wintertime and you really can even them all out, they take an estimate, they divide it by 11, and that's what you pay. But keep an eye on how much you use. I met this one couple, and what they did is their equal pay plan was $150, but they weren't keeping track. They had a bad water leak at their house, and their bills were running $250, $270. 370. Then it came up to the true-up time where you have to, and they owed $370. They owed $370 because they were just looking at the money. And I always look at this bar graph right here, and I compare it to the same month of the previous year to see, and I'm going to expand that. It looks like this. So, if this is a June month right here, I was going to look and say, okay, what was it like the year before? If it was a jump like that, I want to say, what happened? Did somebody move in? Did the kid come back from college and you're doing a whole bunch of hot water washing? Did you put in a stock heater? Did you break a hot water pipe? Do you have something? So always look at your power bill, and I love this little chart that gives comparisons because that'll give an idea of what it was per day the same time last year. So always look at that. Okay, when we talk about electricity, we talk about the energy use, and we talk about kilowatt hours. And I know that's kind of bright, but I'd like to show it to everybody. When the term kilo means 1,000, 10 times 100 is 1,000. So what we've done here, if I take 10 100-watt light bulbs, it's 1,000 watts, and K, you see the K in there, everybody? That sounds for 1,000. So 10 100-watt light bulbs equals 1,000 watts or 1 kW. And Pacific Power, like all utilities, they sell the quantity by the thousands. It's like 1,000 eggs, or at least 1,000 watt hours is a kilowatt hour. So that is the instantaneous power. As soon as I turned that on and that meter there, it went from 5 kW up there to 6 kW. That it added 1 more kW. Well, that over time, if I had those 10 100-watt light bulbs and they burned for 1 hour, it would be 1 kilowatt hour. So 10 100-watt light bulbs burning for 1 hour is 1 kilowatt hour. And right now it's about 11 cents is what you pay. So if you turn on 10 100-watt light bulbs and you burn them for 1 hour, it's 1 kilowatt hour. It costs about 11 cents. So that's the energy, that's power over time. So that gives you an idea how it's measured. The other thing is how to read your meter. And I encourage people to read their meter. And you don't have to read it all the time. Our meter readers are very, very good. And some are read electronically, and meters are within 3%. But I want to show you, because if you ever pick up your bill and you go, wow, is that right? Well, I see the read is, wow, here's the read on that date. I want to see what it is. The meter is said 5 days ago, and the year said it was 11,280. I'm going to go read it just to check. There's nothing wrong with that, and I want to show you how to do it. We have 2 different meters out there. These are mechanical meters. How many meters look like that? Does your meter look like that? Is it mechanical? Yours is? Okay, and the other ones look like the one on the left, and we're getting more and more of these digital meters. What does yours look like? The digital? The mechanical? Okay. They're both very accurate. They work the same way. And here is the little lesson, by the way. If you want to, we're going to give you a little book. Should we do the book now? Let's do a little later. I'll talk you through it. This is how you do it. On a digital meter, you just subtract the previous reading from the current reading. So if this was a digital read, and I look, this is at 0, I would look what's on here, and it's advanced to that number. I'd subtract one from the other, and that's how much I used. It give you an idea. On the mechanical ones, you have to do it, it's a little bit of a math, and you have to read these dials. And how you do it, you start on this one, then you read this one, this one, this one, this one. You go from right to left, and if the hand is in between the smaller of the two, you take the smaller number, and then if it's, and I'm going to show you here a better example. If you have to read your meter, it goes like this. Now, remember, do you see how this goes clockwise? Goes that way, you guys see that? This one goes counterclockwise, and people go, why in the world did they do that? And the reason why is they didn't have to put a correcting gear. One turns the other one without, you have to make them all go the same way, they would have another gear on it. And the gears cause drag, and drag causes them to be inefficient. You don't want drag on, that's why they don't do it. So here are the rules. You start at one, my eyes go clockwise, and you can see it's between the 5 and the 6, and you take the smaller number, which is a 5. Then this one goes that way, between the 9 and that 0 would now be a 10. Follow that? See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that would be 10, and that starts over again. So 9 is less than 10, so it's a 9. Now here's the trick, and I put this up, I want this to be clever. You see does that look like a 2? It does, doesn't it? But the reason it's not is you always look back and imagine there's 10 little tick marks between the 1 and the 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Every time that goes from 0 to 1, that goes 1 click. 2, second click, 3, 4. So you see the ratio on that? So I always look back and go, wow, is that a 2 or is it still a 1? And I would say it's still a 1 because that would have to pass the 0. Did you follow that? Follow it? Okay. The rules are you read from right to left. So I first, and then you get the hands in between two numbers, you take the smaller of the 2. That's between a 5 and a 6, so it's a 5. Now remember, you can see this is halfway between there and there. You see what I mean? So this, every time, this has to go around a whole revolution before that goes from there to there. Okay? So for example, this is on the 5th tick mark. If I have 10 tick marks between there, because I look back in my eyes and oh, it's on the 5th tick mark between the 9 and that. And then when on this one I say, where is it? And I say, oh, it's on the 9th tick mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And even though it looks like it's on the 2, I call it a 1 because that would have to pass 0. Are you with me now? So anyway, that is a 5. This one's a 9. That is 1. My eyes go clockwise, counterclockwise. That's between 0 and 1. It's a 0. And then my eyes go around this way. And I look back, is that a 7 or 8? And I can see it is past the 0, so it's an 8. So my read on that date would be 5, 9, 1, 0, 8. Then 30 days later, I read the meter again, and my eyes go 5. And you can see this is halfway between the 1 and the 2. You guys are getting a meter reading class right now, okay? You'll be great meter readers by this, okay? So this is a 5, that's a 1. This goes around, and that's past 9. It's on its way to 10, so it's a 9. This is a 9. And that would be a 7. So 5, 1, 9, 9, 7. And you see, I write it that way, 5, 1, 9, 9, 7. And this one was 0, 9, 1, 8, 0, 9, 1, 0, 8. And I subtract those two, and it's 280 kilowatt hours. And Civic Power charged around 11 cents. The bill would be $30.80. It'd be a small bill. That's how it works. So what I'm encouraging, if you ever want to check your meter, and especially if, is anybody here a landlord? Anybody a landlord? Sometimes, are you? I read the meter, I'm a landlord too. When people move in and out, I like to read the meter and say, oh, there it was at that particular time. So then that's why it becomes of value. Okay, the whole purpose of this is going to be no cost, low cost things you can do to control your energy bill. And even though Civic Power is paying for us to be here, and they are a sponsor of this because they want you to be as efficient and happy as possible, and they pay for Tom and me to do this. But we're going to start with no cost, low cost ideas. And first we're going to start with electric heating, and that is the #1 energy use. Now this building is kind of interesting. Up there we have a gas heater, you see it up there, that is propane. But they have electric heaters, see a portable electric heater here. And then they have a 4,000 watt one in there and a 4,000 watt here. So this building is electric and it's also propane. Here's the first one I'm going to give you. And this is no cost, low cost. Remember I was talking to a lady with arthritis? And they had to keep it at 80 degrees and their bills were 30% higher than if it was somebody that was at 70 degrees. For every degree that you have over 70, it raises your heating bill 3.1%. By the way, that's on all energy fuels. On. Whether it's propane, it is natural gas, whether it's oil or electricity. And the reason why, I already said I'm a thermographer, we take infrared thermography. If if I took a picture of this building when it's cold outside and heating inside, we'd stand outside with a camera and it would be bleeding out the windows. Windows lose a single pane glass 26 times the amount of heat as an insulated wall. Double pane 13 times the amount of heat. So they would be blood red. And you see, but if the building was the same temperature as outside, there would be no heat loss at all. It would just look cold. But the bigger that temperature differential, if this was 90 in here, it would be white heat going out those windows. You follow what I'm saying? That's why this is true. That's why this is true. It also works on nighttime setbacks. And nighttime setbacks do save you energy. They do save you energy because that heating differential I'm talking about, remember if I said it was 90 outside and 30 outside, it would be white hot, with infrared photography. But, if I could reduce it so it's not 90 degrees, well, let's say you took it from 70, just down to 60, there wouldn't be as much heat transmission through those windows and walls. And that's why a night setback saves you money. And I've heard people say, yeah, well, it costs more to heat it up than it does to save, and that really isn't true. The only time that happens is if you have a heat pump. If you have a heat pump and you turn it way down, a heat pump transfers heat. In other words, there's an outside unit, and all that air goes through that outside unit and it robs the heat out of it, goes through a compressor and heats you inside. But if all of a sudden it can't keep up with that, then it turns on a resistant strip, and it's no better than a forced air furnace. If it can't keep within 2 degrees, that's when the strip comes on. So I've seen people, and a lot of times this, by the way, are people from California, not to offend anybody, but I live there too, and they're used to natural gas, they're not used to heat pumps. And with a natural gas furnace, you can drop it down to 55 degrees and bang, put it up to 70, no problem. You do that with a heat pump though, what will happen? You turn it down that much, and now it's got, let's say, 15 degrees to recover. And remember I said if it can cover 2, it's going to turn on the strip heats. And so what happens, the people think they're saving energy by turning it down. And what happens then when they turn it back up to recover, instead of running the heat pump and robbing the heat from the outside air, it's turning on that strip heater just like, and your savings was lost. And I'm going to show you a thermostat that will work with that and it'll recover without doing that. But anyway, this is why a nighttime setback works on the vast majority. And choose a reasonable one. In my house, I live in Medford, by the way, and we turn it down 10 degrees at night. First of all, I like it a little cooler, so does my wife. I don't like to go to bed in a really, hot. I like it about 10 degrees. And by the time I get up, it's all nice and toasty. So I'm saving energy, I'm sleeping better. So a nighttime setback is something you can do in your home, but it's something you can do in your business. And a lot of times people don't think it applies, a lot of things we do in our home applies to our businesses. So nighttime setback or walk away saves you energy. I want to talk about thermostats and all sorts of thermostats. I'm going to start with this one, and I don't know if you have any. These are for baseboard heaters, and they have big, heavy wires on them, like this. And this is called a line voltage thermostat, and you can see by the whole power that goes to that baseboard heater or wall heater goes through these heavy wires. They're inaccurate. They're inaccurate. And most you can put on, I've always seen Tom's 4,000 watts, and that's a lot. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think they're all rated, basically they kept the rating on them.
Rating on.
Yeah, I don't know if that to do 4,000 watts.
Well, the problem is the more heat that goes through it, it heats it up and it defeats itself. And usually they say at 1,000 watts they're within 2 degrees. At 3,000 watts they're within 3 degrees, plus or minus. At 4,000 watts it's plus or minus 4 degrees. Think about that. Think about that. What plus or minus 4 degrees means -4 to +4. So the span is 8 degrees. 8 degrees. That means that, if I set it, and I have a lot of wattage on it, let's say a lot of baseboard, I can set it at 70 degrees, but if I had a lot, it's going to drop all the way down to 66 and not come back on to 74. In other words, they're quite inaccurate. The other thing I need to tell you, a lot of them do not have an off switch on it. I gave this, was it here when we did it out at the hospital? I gave it, I don't know if you were there, there was a gentleman there in the office, in the And he said, Buzz, I used to make these things. And there, you put them a lot of times in apartments, and it's a low-cost solution. But he said, off switch was another $3 or $4 on it. It was an option. They just go down to 55. I did a high bill analysis in Bend, Oregon, and Bend gets cold. I don't know if this gets colder in Bend or not. It does. And these people, they had this rec room, and they had these in there. I said, Buzz, we're gone. I turned them all the way down, and I said, well, there's no off on. And as soon as it got to 55 degrees, bang, the bills came on. If you have these in your businesses, please be aware of that there is no off. And if you walk away from the building, it's really cold, it most likely is going to turn on if it drops below 55. The other thermostats are these. And if you have this is called a low voltage thermostat. Does anyone have this in your building? You have that just like that?
Oh, we have that one and that one.
And that one too? Oh, the one, this one right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the bottom.
This one right here. Okay, and that's this one. Tom, is that the same as the one we have on the wall over there?
Yeah, it's very close.
Yeah. Now this is good. I'm not making fun of anybody here, but did you see where the thermostat is in this building? That is it. My God. Why are we measuring the temperature 10 feet off the ground? You know, this is that low cost, no cost. Put it down about 5 feet off the ground. Length of the
Wouldn't you
wire.
take it away from the windows as well?
Pardon?
Wouldn't you take it away from the windows as well?
Did you hear what she said? Take it away from the windows. Usually you want a thermostat. Thank you very much for saying that.
Sure.
You want it on an inside wall. And what they've done, this is one of the coldest places in this whole building. This is single pane glass. It's ice cold. There is a gap under there. This is accumulating. It's not measuring 5 foot off the ground. It's got it in the coldest place there. Why do you want it in the coldest place? You want to have it on an inside wall that is not impacted by outside temperature. So the location of it is very, very important. Now these kind of thermostats, they look like, and I'll pass this around. This is low voltage, just 24 volts go to it. And I want you to look at, there's a little drop of mercury in it. Can you see that? And how this is that when there's a bimetallic strip under there, it means it's a strip of different metals. And as it gets warmer and colder, it moves like that. It looks like a pig's tail. And you can see it moves like that. And so if the temperature gets cold, it moves that way. If it gets warmer, it goes like that and turns it on. No cost, low cost. Make sure it's level. Make sure it's level. You know, if it's tilted like this, it's not going to be accurate. You know, you might get, excuse me, it's a particular temperature, and it's not because you see the mercury's going downhill. So you put a level under it. Hell, let me pass that. No cost, low cost. Okay, this is what I really, really like. This thermostat here.
So I have a question before you
Yes.
go on. I've been trying to get them to change them out, and you said there's nothing wrong with them. I know there's nothing wrong with them, but they're antique.
They're antique.
They're not as efficient as the new ones. Can I say that?
Yes, it is. And
Oh, it is efficient?
no, these are very accurate, but they're nowhere near as accurate as these. No, they're nowhere, and these have features on it that these don't. This is a very mechanical device. Goes on and off, has a summer fan on it, but it's a very, very simple device. And you know that it's an argument whether it's accurate or not. They are within 1% or so. These.
So in the long run, you'll end up making up your money.
Oh, you will. You can make up your mind with, make your money with this. These new thermostats, and this is a programmable thermostat. This is the one I have in my own house, and I can't recommend anything, but it is a Honeywell 8500, and I love it. And I love it because I get so tired of reading manuals. I am so sick of that. You know, and to have something like that, and I go like this, okay, let's see what I want to do. I want to raise the temperature, blah, 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 like that, and then I'll hit hold, and then we'll walk away. Or when we go on a vacation, Sherry and I leave, I just go, bam, 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 60 degrees hold, and walk out the door. And then I just come back, and I hit hold again, and I go right on. It is so simple. I like that. I'm so tired of reading manuals. The other thing about this thermostat, remember I was telling you about a heat pump? Does anyone have a heat pump in their house or their building? Okay, here we go. A number of people. Heat pumps are a wonderful device if they're used correctly. But if you bang them up and down, and you set them way down, and set them up, remember I said the strip comes on and you lose your efficiency. These thermostats can learn. When I put this, we remodeled our house, and I put one of these thermostats in, and I went to the HVAC guy, and I said, I want to put this thermostat in, and he said, because I don't want the strip turning on, I want to set back at night, but I don't want to lose that in my recovery. And he said, we'll put in one of these thermostats. It's great. First day I got up, and I go to the gym in the morning, 5:30, I'm out of there. I'd like it 65 degrees in there, but by the time the wife gets up, which is about 9:30, excuse me, I said, by the time she likes it about 72. And so I got up, it wasn't 65 degrees, it was 60. Called Bob on the phone. Bob, why isn't this working? He said, it hasn't figured it out yet. It hasn't figured it out yet. And I said, what do you mean? He says, it's a learning thermostat. What happens on a learning thermostat? You're saying, okay, Mr. Heat Pump, I want you to warm this up and turn it on the strip. So it's going to start here at 6:30, you want it at that temperature, it's going to probably start at 5:30, because it takes a slower process, has that heat come in, didn't get it. So what it's going to do, it's not going to start at 5:30 now, it's going to start at 5:15. And if it doesn't at 5:15, it's going to start at 5 o'clock until it does a nice, efficient way to heat it up without turning on the strip. That's what a learning thermostat can do. So these are a very, and I spent now this isn't no cost, low cost, but it was $220 and I had a guy install it. Our house has not been off a half a degree since that time, and that's another thing. They're very, very accurate. It's simple to use, and it saved money because they have setbacks. Yes?
What was the make and model of that?
That one is a Honeywell 8500.
8500?
8500.
And that only works for a heat pump, right?
It works for anything, Sarah?
But the learning way of it is.
Yes. It has a learning capability where it's wonderful for heat pumps. I want to talk about duct work. We are troubleshooters. We are in everything from houses to ranches to car lots. And so much energy is lost in your duct work. So much energy is lost, and no one looks at it. No one wants to go in a crawl space. No one wants to go in an attic. And in 50% of the jobs I go to, the duct work is off now. 50% it has fallen off. And one of them was here in Lakeview, the worst one I ever saw. And I'm not going to say the building, but I went here because the people said they wanted a new heat pump. The return air duct in the attic had fallen off. It was taking raw outside air. And I said, do you want me to fix this? And they were ready to buy a new heat pump. This is the thing. Here's a commercial building. So I had a screw gun with me, and I just put the duct back on, drilled 3 holes, with some fender washers on there, screwed them together, and they were fine. So have somebody look at the ductwork, or if nothing else, turn on your fan. Is it coming out of every register? Is it when can you see it? If you can't do it, or you put some tissue there and go, if it's not falling, if it's not coming out there, that is an indication that you are heating up your crawl space. And I'm going to show you some pictures, including the building we operate in. I want to talk about your water heater. Everybody has a water heater, whether you're in your house or whether it is your business. Water heating is something we have to have. And electric water heaters are the second biggest power used in a home, and generally they're the second biggest one or the third biggest one in a business. Usually in a business it's heating, air conditioning, water heating. They are a big user. And if anything goes wrong with it, it can cost you a lot of money. When I go back here, electric can be installed almost anywhere. They're cheap to install because there is no exhaust stack. If this was propane, for example, you'd have an exhaust stack, and that costs money to do. So, average family, if it's a house, they use about 500 kilowatt hours a month, about $55. That would be for a family in a house. The temperature setting is generally 120, unless there is a dishwasher. If you in your commercial building standing, you have a dishwasher. You do? Okay. What I like to do, you need at least, honestly, 140 to your dishwasher. You really do. And this is...
Is there a way to just turn it on when you're going to use it, and we use the dishwasher once a month?
Once a month. Oh, gee, that makes it tough. Most dishwashers have it. Let me tell you the whole story. And because I deal with a lot of people that do have restaurants, and if you get into a big restaurant, they actually have a booster heater that will raise it all the way up to 180 degrees. The reason why it has to be 140 to that dishwasher is the reason to dissolve the soap. Some people say it's to sterilize, and I'm going, boy, I hope you're not a nurse. Sterilizing, you've got to boil, it's got to be 212, you know, that's what you're going to sterilize. But the dishwasher soap dissolves at 140, and that's why the water has to be hot. If you ever take your stuff out of the dishwasher and see little white grains on it, it means it was cold water came to it. And if your water, is your water here hard or not? It is hard. Harder it is, the higher the temperature. I know people in Bend have that issue, really hard cold water, and they have to have temperature. But anyway, let's go down the parts of the water heater, because if anything goes wrong with this can cost you money. And we're talking about no cost, low cost. There's a pop-up valve right on the top here. Make sure whether it's propane or it's oil fired or it's electricity, they all should have this little pop-up valve on top. They all should have it. And if they don't, it is dangerous. It's really that simple. And here's the story about this is here in Washington, and the thermostat got stuck, they didn't have it. And if you want to read this, the water heater flew out of the building like a rocket and across a Pizza Hut and landed in a parking lot. It was literally a bomb. Because they fill it with steam, it's a steam explosion. Because they had taken this off, and then the thermostat stuck, it was partly filled, it boiled the water until it became steam, and then took off like a rocket. So make sure all have a pop-off valve. It can be on the side, it's brass, it looks like that. If it leaks, go to the hardware store and get another one. Go to True Value, they're about 11 bucks. Now, okay, next thing, a drain. Here's the drain on the bottom of this one, it's right here. Make sure it isn't leaking, okay? It's used if you ever have to change the air element or you want to drain sediment out, but make sure it doesn't leak. Oh, this one too. This is a no cost, low cost. Here we go. What? Yeah, I'm trying to. Here we go. Tom, your fingers are so big, we would not be able to do it. Tom has a large strength.
Geez.
Okay,
We're both under there?
they are. Okay, I'm going to do this on that clock. You get it out of there. All shape. There we go. The way a water heater works, and if you have these things, these could be a big component and they can cost you money. And the reason why is the elements on this are 4,500 watts. This was 1,000 watts. So every time this comes on, it's equal to 4,500 watt light bulbs coming on. Think of that. Think of that. It's equal to 4,500 watt light bulbs coming on. So a hot water leak is triggering that. And that's why I like to present that to business owners, because, oh, it's just a hot water leak. You're conscious of the lights being on. But that hot water leak, if it was 4,500 watt light bulbs coming on, you go, we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it. That's why I'm spending time on this. So anyway, the way the hot water works is cold water comes in here all the way down to the bottom through this dip tube, okay? And then it's sucked out of the top, and there is no tube here. So and the reason why it does that is you want the hot water to rise up at the top, and you want it disposed down here. If you ever start running out of hot water, these things can break off. There was a recall on A.O. Smith, and this is the one that came in, by the way. I'll pass that around. It's very flimsy. And they would break off, and I would take a shower, and I was, wow, running out of hot water. And I was asking my wife, I said, what happened? And I said, I don't know. I ended up taking the whole thing apart. I thought the elements were both good in it. That wasn't the issue. And that had broken off right about here. And so the cold water was coming in here and then right up there, and then you'd get about a minute of hot water. And my elements were good on it. And so if you ever start seeing this white granule in your hot water, what happened? This was a mess, by the way, because I had to take out the water heater, roll it out on the lawn. This looked like Grace Raft. Roll the water out of it. I'm riding it like a Bronco. and I've got a hose to it, getting all the stuff out of it to finally get it, but that the particles have lodged themselves in the dishwasher. That little screen on the washer dryer and lodged in that. So be very conscious of that. If something goes wrong with your water heater and you start running out of hot water, it's either you have lost one of these elements, usually it's the lower one, or you froze this dip tube. And when you start breaking the dip tube, you short cycle your hot water. Okay? The other thing is there's elements in it. And the elements look like this. Now, one of the things I always ask if the bill goes up, are you getting any shocks off appliances? I always ask that question. It's, are you getting any shocks? Have you thrown any breakers? And this happened to me one time when I saw this. This had burned in half and laid against the inside of the tank. And it wasn't a big enough short to throw the breaker, but the power was going right to ground, And so that was something I was I like to share with people, and I always say, are you ever getting shocks off anything? Because we want to know it, we being Pacific Power, we don't want, electricity is a wonderful thing, but it can be lethal. And if you ever call us a trouble line and you say you're getting shocks, we want to know about it, okay? There's a thermostat in there, and it is right here. And if you set it, and if you have it for just like in your business, like this has a bathroom here, all you need is 100 to 120 degrees. You don't need that hot temperature like I was talking to. So what I like to do is I'll take a coffee cup and then I'll stick a thermometer in here, and I like the ones that we get from Starbucks. It has a dial on it or Fred Meyer. Stick it in there, turn the water on, as hot as it'll go, and just read it. Read it. If you're in your house, you're at 120, 130, 140, that's fine. 150, there's no reason for that. But if you're just washing your hands in here, 100 degrees is fine. So why heat it up more than you want? Okay? So that's another no cost, low cost. Something else, if you get a new water heater, you're going to hear something like this. This is code. Listen, I don't know if you guys can hear this. Listen. Can you guys hear that? That is to prevent the migration of hot water out of here into the lines when you don't use it. This can drive you nuts, by the way. When we put our water heater in, and this was in our house, a new water, this was a code thing that came in, and it was in the TV room, and I'm hearing this rattling. I'm going, Sherry, what do we have, rats in the wall? What is this? And it was this, and it was going there, and we got to get this out of here. So I replaced it with a little piece of pipe, took this thing out of here, and just heavily insulated it. So I saved the energy, but that can be annoying. Insulation. This is another thing on water heaters, is used to wrap them, but if they're covered like that, if it's an old water heater, it does help to wrap it. You're saving energy. You have an old one, if it's fiberglass, I don't cover up the thermostats. I wrap it all the way around, and not around here, not around here. But like this one, if it's a modern with foam in it, you really don't need to wrap it. But wrapping the water heater is another low-cost solution that can save you money. Oh, okay. Here's another one. I don't know if you got this one. I'm going to go back to this. This I really like too. This is a little water heater, and this is something I really applaud this building right here for having. That's what they don't have the big. You don't need 50 gallons in this building. You don't need 50 gallons. This is just a little water heater. See, it just plugs into the wall, and it's over the bathroom. Isn't it, Tom?
They got a small 5-gallon water heater, looks like this, but just a small 4-gallon.
Okay.
It's in that.
In here.
Yeah.
Same idea as this,
Because they've got enough in the sink and a kitchen sink and curfew.
and it serves both.
Right.
See, this is really smart. You see, because it costs about $11 a month just to keep your 50-gallon water heater hot. Just about, but this one you see is 5 or 2.5, and it's plenty for just washing your hands. And I even did this in my house. Our house is a ranch house, and it used to be the water heater was down by the garage, and just for me to shave or wash my hands in the bathroom, I swear I wait 3 to 5 minutes just to do that. I put one of those right under the sink now, and hot water almost instantly, and I've saved energy because I'm not moving that hot water all the way from the garage, all the way to the other end of the house, just just wash my hands, and I use what, a cup of water, and then the whole thing cools off, and I do it again. You know, and so that works for your house, but it also works really well for your business. And the illustration is right there. That's exactly what we did. So, I want to talk about one more thing that causes leaking hot water. If you have a leak, think of those 4,500 watt light bulbs coming on, and it triggering it on. Is that if you have 60 drops a minute, it wastes 192 gallons, so also, and it costs you about $4 a month. If I go to 2 a second, it's $9 a month. As soon as it goes to a 3-inch stream, now I'm $24 a month, and it wastes over 1,100 gallons. This was one again in Bend, Oregon, when I went out there, and the bills went through the roof. And what happened, these people were snowbirds, and they lived in Bend, but they go down to Arizona. And what happened, they came back with this huge power bills. And they were saying, what happened, Buzz? And I read the meter, the power went through it. I mean, you can know red and white. What happened, they broke the pipe under their insulation in their crawl space, and it was, a lot of times it's the hot water pipe that goes. The hot water pipe was good. And it kept that water heater, 4,500 watts, going 24/7 for that whole period. Here's the impact on your bill. A major water leak that's on continually, the water heater cannot recover. You have a half-inch line going to a water heater, you break it, that water heater cannot ever come up to temperature. It's going to be just like taking a 350 Chevy, put it in neutral, and just born. That's what it's like. So anyway, 4.5 kW times 24 hours times 30 days is 3,240 kilowatt hours that month. That was 356 bucks on their bill. So really be conscious in your business of any hot water leak. Be conscious of duct work that has fallen off. That's the things that can really cost you some money, regardless of the fuel form. And now, Tom, I changed for Tom, and you are going to take lighting. There you go.
That's just energy costs he's talking about on that water heater, that includes the water you're using.
Here in town, I mean, obviously if you're on a well, I know sediment can affect the tank, you can fill in if you're on a well. What about, like us that are on, like here in town that are on city water? If you have a drain on a water heater, you get about that much slime on the bottom.
Yeah.
What in the world is that?
It's just the hard, you say there's hard water here, so it's just minerals in the water. He's asking about,
Looks like a jellyfish when you drink it.
yeah, he's asking about sediment that builds up in the bottom of water heaters. You know, if you're on a well, you're normally going to get that. He said, you know, they're on city water here, but they still get a pretty good buildup in the bottom of their water tank. So it's a good idea every couple of years to drain it, just to try and clear that out, or to see if there's something there, simply by opening up the valve, letting some water run, you can find out. A lot of times when that builds up to your element height, it's going to cover the element, which is going to cause that element to burn out. But yeah, it's normally just from the sediment in the water and so forth like that. And it's hard to say what minerals it is. You can have your water tested by a local well company to see if there's anything in there that's harmful. But yeah, that is pretty common for that kind of stuff to build up. So Buzz has got us through water heaters and furnaces. We're going to talk a little bit about lighting now. In the last several years, there's been a lot of change from incandescent lighting to CFL type lighting, fluorescent, compact fluorescent. And now pretty much everybody is familiar with LED, light emitting diode technology, which seems to be taking over the market. Light emitting diodes have been around for a long time, mainly in small electronics. Recently, they've figured ways to get the color rendering right and get it into higher wattage capacity, so we can actually use it for area lighting. This is a comparison of incandescent, compact fluorescent, and light emitting diode technology. As you can see here, we're comparing a 60-watt incandescent to a 13-watt CFL and a 12-watt LED. Life hours are considerably higher as you go from incandescent to fluorescent and LED. Cost of the bulb itself when you buy it, incandescent bulb you can get for under $1, around 60 cents. $150 for CFLs. In fact, I think nowadays they're trying to give CFLs away because LED has taken over the market so much. LEDs are now down at about that $3 range. We're finding 3 packs at Costco, Lowe's, and that kind of stuff you can get for $9 or $10, so about $3 a bulb. So in the time that you're going to go, in the hours here, in the time that you're going to use one CFL bulb, you're going to go through 5 13-watt, one LED, you're going to go through 5 CFLs and 53 incandescents at that lifespan we're looking at here. So your bulb cost is going to be about $32 for those 53 incandescents, $8 for the CFLs, and you're at $3 for the one LED bulb. The kilowatt hours used are considerably higher for the incandescent, fairly close between the fluorescent and the LED. But when you get down to the energy costs at 11 cents per kilowatt hour, to run it, this many hours, kilowatt hours, is going to cost substantially more. Still, energy costs aren't too far apart from the CFL and the LED. But by the time you add the cost of bulbs plus the cost of energy, the LED is by far the best choice. In most cases, it's a one-time replacement. 40,000 hours is a long time for a light bulb to last. So LED has really taken over. CFL was kind of the big push to get out of incandescent because about 94% of the energy used to run an incandescent bulb is producing heat rather than producing light. So it's a very inefficient way to go, but it's a very cheap way to go until energy prices started going up. The CFL came into effect because it was a low-cost alternative, but there's a lot of problems with CFLs. The life cycle of 8,000 hours that they quote here, they don't really tell you unless you read the fine print on the box, but they recommend a 3-hour runtime. If you're turning a light on and off, like in a closet somewhere, we just go in, flip it on, in there for a minute or two, you flip it back off. It hasn't had a time to come up to its heat. You've diminished the lifespan of that bulb considerably, and the more you do that, the lower that lifespan is going to be. So you read the 8,000 hours on the package, and the thing is burned out in a month. It's usually because you're turning it on and off way too much.
Question?
Yes.
On the LED lights, is the lifespan changed by the on-off?
No, it's the electronics in the fluorescent that cause that. When you turn on a fluorescent bulb, there's a high voltage impulse that fires a igniter inside that lights the gas. And by turning it on and off without that runtime, it doesn't allow that to heat up to the full temperature. I don't know if you've noticed if you have CFLs in your home, you turn them on, they're pretty dim, it takes them a while to set the full brightness. If you're running this 3 hours or longer, they're very efficient, they last long, maybe even longer than that on and off.
But the LEDs is not.
LED doesn't efficient like
As commercial businesses make a jump. I hate to see, look at these are CFLs, and a lot of people hate them. You hate them. And we're encouraging people to do the LEDs, just go right to it.
And they do require special disposal. They do have mercury in them.
All right.
And other rare minerals are becoming fairly scarce. So,
But it's a big investment to switch out to LEDs.
as the cost of LED comes down, it's not that much different. I mean, you're talking maybe twice the money to buy a $3 LED as opposed to $1.50 CFL. The lifespan is going to be considerably longer. You're getting a better quality light. I think in the long run, you're better off with that.
Do you have to change out the fixtures?
Oh no, they're LED bulbs that you can just replace as a bulb. That's an LED. We're going to talk about color now, and this is a good example of the different colors. When LED first kind of came on the market, about your only choice was a high Kelvin, which Kelvin is a temperature scale, and incandescent lighting has always been measured. The color of that light has been measured by Kelvin, basically because that's the temperatures cheap inside of the film that is actually burning at these temperatures to get the whiter light. As you can see here, a candle light runs at about 1500 Kelvin, so a fairly cool light. The higher the temperature, the whiter the light gets until it actually is a blue color. So this is a 60 watt soft white incandescent bulb. Burns at about 2700 Kelvin. When the LED first came out, it seemed like the high Kelvin was about all you could find. This is a 5000 Kelvin, and it's what they refer to as daylight. Some people see that daylight and think, oh, it's going to be healthy for me, vitamin D and all that kind of stuff. It's not true. It's a nice white light, but it's not sunlight, so it's not going to give you that kind of help. Since the onset of LED and the technology's gotten better, they've gotten very good at getting much closer to the color of incandescent with the LED. So, there are areas where you want a real white light, but in most cases, people like that soft color. They don't want to have that harsh, bright light. So, when you're looking for LED bulbs or any light bulb, the temperature Kelvin, it's always marked on the packaging. There should be a scale on the back, and most of these will tell you what the Kelvin scale is. In fact, on this one you can see there's a sliding bar on the bottom that indicates what the Kelvin level is.
And with the LEDs, when you turn them on and off, do you have the problem like?
With the LED, there's no issue with the on and off. It's just with the fluorescence that have that problem.
Is that all true of two LEDs? You said shop lights now?
Two LEDs or two fluorescents?
Two LEDs.
The LED, yeah, the LED it's a diode. It is a electronic component that they built with a certain kind of mineral to get the different colors of light. There is no, the LEDs in these bulbs are the same as what would be in the strip. They're just one configuration.
But can you swap out your fluorescent and you got the, the garage?
There are replacement bulbs on the market now. They're getting more and more of those. They came in a little bit late. There were some really products out there that just didn't seem to take off very fast. There's some very good, just basically you can either buy a bulb that can be just take out the fluorescent bulb, you can put it in an LED in the same socket, leave the ballast in. There's also other replacements where you take the electronic ballast out of the fluorescent and just run 120 volt current to it. You can use the same fixture, it just requires the ballast to be in. So that technology has really come along in the last couple of years. Costs have come down, quality of light has come up, and the lifespan just seems to be getting longer and longer. Some of these, they say that it's a 40-hour or 40,000-hour lifespan. There just hasn't been enough time to test it because it's on for so many years. Some say that they could possibly go 100,000 hours. Lifespan. So when you're looking at lifespan, the color, which is indicated in the Kelvin scale, is what you want to look for to give you an idea of what the color of that light's going to be. Here again, we've talked about the CFL and why there are certain situations where they don't work very well, and it's frequent on-off. Some of them are also say don't use in the enclosed fixture, like a glass globe or something like the one on the ceiling here, because they create so much heat when they're working. And that's one thing. This incandescent has been on just about as long as this LED has been on. I have no problem holding on to that LED. There's very little heat being created there, but that second is hot.
Yeah.
So, but fluorescents also create heat. Fluorescents require a ballast to fire that gas that's inside. So it's basically a high voltage transformer that's transforming 120 volts to a high voltage. So when you initially turn it on, it sends that current to ignite that gas to get that fired. So there's heat created there, and you get losses from that heat, energy losses. And Buzz is going to jump into fuel comparisons.
Before you go on, just real quick, if you don't mind. If you have an opportunity, the Energy Trust of Oregon, if you go onto their website, you have an opportunity, they have a kit that will come with a bunch of free light bulb,
Yeah, we actually have one.
For your
here.
home, yeah.
for your home, for your home.
Yeah,
I
I got
don't
one of
want
these,
to.
I got one of these recently, they came with 8 of these, floods. Are they LEDs or?
They're LED.
Yeah, they're LEDs.
They are gonna give you about 8 of them for free. So you just have to go onto the website, you sign up, you only get it once, and it takes about 6 weeks before you get them. But if you go on the Energy Trust of Oregon, they'll send you this kit right here.
And also with that kit, you get some plumbing fixtures too, low flow shower heads and low flow faucet adapters to put on your kitchen.
Takes about 5 minutes to fill up.
Yeah. You can't get them for your business. It's a residential thing only, but as long as you haven't gotten one for your home yet, you can get one for your home.
Right.
Thanks, Tom. That was, the LED has dominated the market. And I'm going to go back to Tom's slide here, is this, it used to be, you know, your spouse would say, go down to Safeway and get some 60-watt bulbs. That's the biggest decision you had was, is it frosted or not, clear. And Tom was talking about these colors. This is very significant, very significant. I can tell you right now, lithium motors, I did the lighting design for them. All their outside cars are 4100. Safeway uses 4100. It's bright and clear. So on your commercial businesses, this was at this incandescent color, like restaurants like that, because it's warm. It's warm. Nordstrom's is even lower than that, like in the area where they have cosmetics. They get it down to about 2000. They want that real warm look. So on your commercial businesses, use it as a tool. Like if it's a grocery store, a lot of times they choose 4100. They want a nice bright color that's crisp over the vegetables. But if you went into a restaurant, look at the two different colors. Okay, here's the incandescent standard, but a lot of people feel that makes it look cold. So you can create the environment of your commercial business by the light you choose now. You have a lot more options, and everything Tom said is right. It's the way to go. 40,000 hours, not going to be changing them out. It's great. So
another thing to think about too is different color lights also affect colors different. So if you look at your skin under that, it's kind of washed out. But if you look at it on this, you see a lot more flesh tones. So in certain instances, you know, to like jewelry, that's very nice, but it's not a great light to
for people,
look at jewelry on your hands. So.
Yes, you have a question.
Okay, I deal with fabrics.
Yes.
Okay, would I want a noonday sun look, or would I want something warmer? Because I'm dealing with blacks and grays and navies, and it's hard to see with what I'm using now.
Your question is beautiful. Okay, and what she's talking about is if you have fabric, you want to show true colors.
Sure.
Like if you have an incandescent light that you can look at something, like some parking lots, have you ever gone out and you can't even find your car because that is called color rendering. And I'd like you to write this down. It's called CRI. And whatever you choose, you want a high CRI over 90. And I'm going to give a plug here for Costco. Can you get the 3-pack out of there? It's made by Feet. You're going to like this.
Is that an index?
Pardon?
CRI, is that an index?
CRI stands for Color Rendering Index, and it means how well our colors portrayed. And they use incandescent as the standard, by the way. Now, Ace, Costco, all get an incentive from Energy Trust already. It's already rolled into that price, and that's why it's a subsidized price. And on this brand made by Feet, F-E-I-T, these 40 watts, which I swear have the power of a 60 watt, it says on a 94 CRI now. I was there the other, a 94. In other words, you're going to look at it, and that color is going to be as true as they can do it. So the number, you want to remember that CRI, because you want fabric to look as it should look. Thank you for that question. Okay, now what we're going to talk about is, I want to talk about fuel comparison. Now, you have electricity here, you have propane here, you have fuel oil here, are the major fuels that are being used. And how you comparison is a term called British Thermal Unit, and it is about the amount of heat that if you took one kitchen match, the wood one, and you burned it until it's totally carbon. That's about the analytical, physics. It's the amount of energy needed to raise 1 pound of water that is a BTU, but it's not equivalent of taking a household kitchen match and burning it to it's just carbon. And what I did is I put these together, and I want to show you choices that you have as business people. Like, is it cheaper to run that gas heater up there, or is it cheaper to run that electric heater right there? Which one is cheaper? How you do it is you buy them in terms of millions of BTUs. That's the common denominator. For example, on electricity resistance, by the way, all these things are the same, by the way. I don't care if it's quartz, that they're all the same. Don't ever, this lady called me the other day and we had an inquiry and she said, well, but I'm using these little quartz heaters and they're supposed to use half. Well, buy a bridge in Brooklyn. I don't know who told you that. A kilowatt is a kilowatt is a kilowatt. I don't care if it's infrared, it's quartz. And our people at Pacific Power, they get these calls all the time. Gee, I put in these heaters, it's supposed to be, it's a sales pitch. All the same. Whether it's a baseboard heater or portable, a watt is a watt is a watt, okay? So anyway, if I look at resistance heat, that would be baseboard heaters, wall heaters, plug-in heaters. You get that many BTUs per kilowatt hour. In a million BTUs, there's 293 of them. So it costs you $32.23 for a million BTUs on resistance heat. That'd be like that, or a wall heater, or a baseboard, all the same. If I get a heat pump, with a coefficient of performance of 2, that means for every kilowatt hour in, I get 2 out of it, because I'm stealing heat from the outdoors, I'm not creating it. It costs me $16.11, and that's why I see so many heat pumps. It's just like, you have a heat pump in your house, right?
Yeah.
Sarah? It's one of the ductless ones? Yeah, that's really popular. Okay, propane here, and I'm saying 80% efficiency, that means 20% is going up in blue. And I'm saying a gallon of propane, I looked at the prices, I was getting it locally at $2.80. What are you guys buying it here for? Am I high or low?
For a while. It's probably a little higher than that,
A
probably.
little higher. I looked at this, you get that many, 91,000 BTUs, so propane is expensive. $38.08 per million BTUs. Okay? So right off the bat, that thing is costing more than that. Do you see? Business decisions. Which one do I want to do? Okay, I'm going to skip over this one because it's natural gas fuel oil. And I was getting this 138,690 BTUs, so it takes 9 of these to get a million BTUs, 2511. So if someone said, okay, Buzz, I have a choice. You know, I'm heating my, let's say it's a commercial garage where people are coming in there and I have an overhead heater. I can either use propane, I got a lot of high air change in there, I need a lot of heat in there. Is it cheaper to use fuel oil or propane? And the answer is substantially fuel oil. Fuel oil. And that's why we wanted to do this. And when I was excited when Sarah came to me, because as business people, you're trying to make those decisions. You know, what is my choice? You know, which one does cost the most? So the answer is simply here, you know, right now, the cheapest one you would have would be a heat pump. But sometimes a heat pump doesn't work. Let's say you have a repair garage for, you know, cars. You have a high amount of air change. That doesn't work well with a heat pump because it builds it up slow. And let's say you need, because even so when that thing comes on, it's a torrent. You know, it's a lot. Let's say you need that. So what would you do? If it was cost, right now fuel oil is cheaper than my propane. Now this is natural gas. And I know you don't have natural gas, but why is there interest in natural gas? Especially commercial business, you can see the cost per million BTU is the lowest of all, and that's why there is the interest in that. Cameron, follow that? Oh, epidemic issues. This was the one in Lakeview, folks.
That's actually the picture?
That is the picture.
Oh my God.
That one fell off, and they were asking me, they were ready to buy a new heat pump. And I went up in the attic, no one likes going in the attic, and this would fall off. That was 14 inches, that is a big duct. It was the whole return duct for the whole thing. And here's the thing, you can fix it for free. And what's happened is they just put it on with duct tape. Can you see this right here? Mm-hmm. It doesn't last. That should have been put on there with sheet metal screws through it with big washers, or you put it on with a panduit connector. A panduit connector is a zip tie. And you crank on that thing and you cannot get it off. One or the other, but people get lazy. And especially if you go up there in an attic and it's dusty you know, it's just a duct tape and a stick for metal when it's dusty. Okay. This is terrible. Anyway, that was one in our old building in Medford. We bought a building in Medford, and I go, I'm kind of this, you know, energy Nazi. I'm nuts on this stuff, you know. And I looked out and Ross right next door goes, he said, hey, I'm not getting the air conditioning. I looked above our, it's a T-bar ceiling, you see right here? T-bar, his office right there. And you know what I think happened? You can see there was a cat cable through here. And I think when the guys ran the computer, Cat 5 cables, they knocked it off. Yeah, you mean? That was your electrician. Wonderful. Hey, I also want to say this. I'm going to give you another story. This was residential to how bad this was. This lady in a mobile home, this was Medford. I went out there, and in the mobile home, it was a side-by-side. And a side-by-side is one side, and then the furnace is on one side, by the way. And then it has a marriage duct that goes underneath and compares one side to the other. And she was saying why her bills were big, and also one side was cool. And I went, oh boy. And I looked at it, the whole duct had fallen off. And it had fallen off because she had never put skirting around it. And her cat got on top of it. If you have a cat, where does it like to sleep?
The warmest place in the house.
Warm place, you know. And it's asleep on the next thing, what does the cat want to do? Scratch. Well, it scratched in this ductwork, fell into the ductwork, and this lady was an elderly woman. She was sitting in the chair, and so I said, you know, I can see the ductwork's falling off, and I hear the sound, and I look down there, and in the register, I see these eyes. I see that, and I pull up the grate there, and it's her cat. I pull her, and she goes, Tabby, I have not seen you for 3 days. The dog got in, and the cat got in there, went all the way down there until it could not turn around. And she didn't hear very well either, and I could hear her crying, you know, so. But anyway, this is something that is epidemic, and so, especially with this flex stuff, they put it all over. It used to be ductwork was metal, and it was rigid, it would lose heat, but there's a lot of travesty with this. This is the category I have under buyer beware. There's scams going out there, and the last thing I want you to do is spend hard-earned money on something that doesn't work. This is an ad that appeared in our paper over there, and I think it appeared in the Climate as well. Oregon residents get a new infrared heater save as much as 50% on heating bills for only $99. At Pacific Power, they hate this stuff. People spend hard-earned money, they're all the same. They are all the same, okay? When I showed you that heat for resistance, and it was $32 per million BTUs, portable heater, baseboard heater, wall heater, quartz heater, all the same. Don't let anyone tell you differently. All the same. Here's another one that happened. This is going around, and I was, do you see in his hand he has this aluminum foil? And what they do on your commercial business or on your house, they put it on top of your insulation with the idea it reflects the infrared back into the house. And this is expensive. Then they change out your lights, they put in a solar fan. We got alerted of this in Grants Pass where this gentleman paid $12,000 for the service. And I couldn't believe it. We tried to get him out of it, and we couldn't. We have an attorney who works on staff, could not get it out because his house was built in 2013. It was a code house. He already had that much insulation and ceiling, and they sold it. And it was really unfortunate. We could not get him out of it. So be aware of things that are too good to be true. Well, what I want to do is talk a little bit about what's coming up. Already Tom talked about LED lights, and the question came up about tubular lights. You are very fortunate here because Pacific Power is a partner with Energy Trust of Oregon, and they collect all this money to help you be more efficient. And for example, there are incentives, substantial incentives for lighting retrofits. Substantial. I mean, it's phenomenal. Because you know you're going to get a payback of like 2 to 3 years on these things by the time they give you the incentives. There's incentives for heat pumps. There's incentives for water heater heat pumps. There's all those incentives. So on our next one, we're going to work with Sarah on this. We're going to organize it again. And we're going to have the representatives from the Energy Trust here. So you will have your questions. If you say, hey, I have a shop, and I have so much, and it's a commercial shop, and we have cars in there, you know, what is the mindset? They're going to be able to answer those questions, and we want to share that with you. Because it covers everything. We're going to talk about geothermal, because it's a renewable energy form. What kind of incentives are available for that? We're going to talk about renewable energy, and I know this is an agriculture environment, and one of the things I'm happy to see, solar works really good with ag on pumping. Really good. And I was talking to this guy in Berlin, and what he did, he put solar on his, and what he's done is, you know, his irrigation season started, I think, like in May, and it ended over at the end of September. We put his anniversary date. Pacific Power will change your anniversary date, and so that's the true up date where they either owe Pacific Power or they owe you. And then from the end of his irrigation, he started winding his meter backwards all the way till he started in May again. And he said, Buzz, I started the irrigation season with an $1,800 credit because of my solar. Tom, the other thing, this is the guy that inspects them all. He's a licensed electrician, he's an electrical contractor, and that's why solar is so hot in Southern Oregon. Also, Pacific Power is a very unique company. They pay you retail price. If you put solar on your business and you pay 12 cents a kilowatt hour, they're winding the meter back and you get a credit for that amount. A lot of companies like eWeb, a lot of public companies don't do it anymore. They pay you avoided cost, which is about 2.3 cents. Your payback is like 10 years with Pacific Power because you're going to get a payback about 4.5 years. Something like that. So it works great for commercial businesses. It works great for ag. But you always do your conservation first. I always want to say that. You don't want to put expensive solar on when you still have waste. You cover that first, okay? Need an audit, we can help you with that. There we are, Tom and I are standing on a high school in Wairika now. They cover everything from commercial washers and dryers. You know, a front loader washer uses 1/3 of the energy, water and soap as a regular one. Great for laundromats, or let's say you have a motel. Those are your choices that you want to have. We're going to cover water heating and the things that you can do on that. Here's my little, that is in our old office, by the way. You probably recognize the water heater. See, just right there, we have instant hot water right there, and we save money. The biggest incentives out there are these water heat pumps now. And this is something in our office. I love those Insta-Hots. That is our office in Medford, and that's 190 degree temperature out of that coming pump, I think it is. So we have tea always like that. That's great. We're going to talk about also tankless gas that works with propane. We're going to talk about incentives for heating and cooling, and this is what Sarah has. These ductless heat pumps are dominating the market now. They go down to 0 degrees. There is no ductwork in it at all. It's just refrigerant lines. That's one of the largest incentives the Energy Trust has.
That's in Mitsubishi.
Pardon?
Is that the Mitsubishi?
It's Mitsubishi, yeah. That's what we also have in our offices. And also, I like it as a business owner because we have little office cubicles in our place. And we have a thing called a thermostat war. That means nobody can agree on the temperature of the thermostat. And one person there, Angela, is cold all the time. She has a Snuggie. She will wear a Snuggie. You know, one of those things that's like a bath at her office. And looks good on her, but now if people can set their individual thermostats in each individual office, and that is really nice. Anyway, we're going to talk about the incentives on that. And one of the best low cost of all is what Tom showed you already. I highly recommend you guys do this. CFLs or?
That's showing CFLs.
Yes.
That's on the slide.
Oh, thank you. That was a test. You can have another water. The old one was CFLs, but now they are LED. And if you price that out, that is about $120 worth of stuff they are giving you. It is a real nice gift.
You know what, but I do want to make sure your address has to be under Pacific Power because there's price rally, right?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Just a reminder,
bummer.
you have to be
Sir.
under Pacific Power.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not there.
I apologize, but that's,
It is.
Well, yeah, that only makes sense.
yeah.
It does. They're the people paying in, you know, the 3% is millions of dollars, and that money goes back to you to incentive to make it a more efficient world. But this kid, we've got to update that picture, Tom. how you get this, by the way, is very simple. You can write this down. It's just www.energytrust.org. That's it. That's it, and that will take you to the website, or you can write that number down and call them if you want, 866-368-7878. Either one works. That's www.energytrust.org or 866-368-7878. Either one takes you there. And the other thing is us. Tom and I are retained by Pacific Power to help you. And if it's calling us for free, we're there all the time. Our number is simple. It's 541-200-2000.
We've got business cards here on the table you can grab.
Yep. We have those. And Tom, let's pass out this book from Pacific Power.
Yeah, I just say, hand it to everybody out, this little booklet, it's got some great information in it. Talks about appliances. It's kind of geared toward residential a little bit more, but it does pertain to businesses as well. Talks about household and appliances and electronics and so forth. Gives you an idea of what they use energy-wise, so you can kind of calculate what your use is. There's lots of tips and hints about different things in your home that you can do for weatherization and energy savings. When you get near the back, there's also some good information on how to read your bill. It also goes over again what Buzz talked about earlier, how to read your meter. So there's a lot of good information here, just for your reference. If there are any questions, feel free to get a hold of either one of us. If we can't answer your question, we'll put you in touch with a person that can.
So I'm looking at the time, Sarah. We hit it.
Yeah.
We hit it. And I want to thank you very much for inviting us. I want to thank Pacific Power, and I want to thank everybody for showing up. And you will alert them on meeting number 2, and we can bring the incentives to you and what's available, and we'll have those people here for you. So thank you for sharing an evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming, and also if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at LCRI. We know a lot of the people at the Energy Trust and these guys at Pacific Power, so we can connect you guys to the resources that'll be most helpful for you. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.